Let's jump right in. So we're talking about a potentially weaponized justice system. And Alex, as we've long since established, you did write a book about this.
I
so
did.
Who
I
was
actually
right
want to revisit, you were talking about what she was, during her campaign, what she said. My chapter on Letitia James and the civil fraud case against Trump, I open with some of her 2018 campaign statements. I will be shining a bright light into every dark corner of his real estate dealings. I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president. He should be charged with obstructing justice. I believe that the president of these United States can be indicted for criminal offenses. So, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. She wants to say this is political weaponization of the justice system. Well, what was she doing just a few years ago, right?
And do you think that the merits of these specific charges against her, and we've talked about the video that the Daily Caller took of her second home, or that her, I think, relative who has the OnlyFans and her other relative who's the fugitive from justice were taking residence, are living, and the Washington Post has never visited.
I think
are these charges worth
I think it's a legitimate case. You know, we have a grand jury not in a very friendly red area that did go ahead and issue this indictment. One of the things is about false statements on to a financial institution. So we're looking at about $18,000, $19,000 that she benefited from this loan that was supposed to be a primary residence, as you mentioned. The problem is that she's also New York's Attorney General. So by law, she was required to live in New York. She was not living in this Virginia home. There's a question about whether she was collecting rent, right, about this being an investment property. Of course, her critics, or she pushes back and says, no, I was only collecting utilities. It was my niece that was living there. So I think that's something that's going to have to come out at trial or through filings. But first, you know, we have a bigger hurdle to see what happens between her and James Comey. Now their cases, they're challenging the U.S. Attorney Lindsay Halligan's standing to bring these charges. That's their first kind of method to try to toss these cases. And the basic argument is that she is not Senate confirmed and she never worked in the DOJ. So they're trying to say she doesn't have authority to bring these cases.
Not being Senate confirmed sounds a lot like Jack Smith.
Well, that's a good point. And that did work for President Trump in his Florida case down in Mar-a-Lago. Now, there's also issues with these interim U.S. attorneys. I think there was one up in New York, actually, earlier this year that had run out of his 120-day time to get confirmed. The Justice Department was able to make him a special counsel, basically kind of change names, and he was able to stay put. So they could do something like this here. It's one of those things we're going to kind of have to watch. November 13th is that hearing.
Brad, it strikes me as unusual for the Attorney General of New York State to declare her primary residence in Virginia. Is that, am I off base?
Well, I mean, think about how many stories that you and I have both written over the course of our careers that bash a congressional candidate for not living in the district where they're actually running for. It matters.
I ran against a guy who didn't live in the district that he represented.
Precisely.
But it's even worse than this because it's not even the state. I mean, it is. How far is that drive?
Right.
Take 7 hours?
That's right. Take our stories and add 1,000 miles.
That's exactly right. Right. That's a long commute from Virginia to New York State.
Exactly. It is a long commute. But the tax situation is so much
better. It
is
better, yeah. I don't blame her for fleeing New York, but I blame her for basically defrauding voters.
Yeah, and I think what the American people voted for in 2024 was they wanted to see an end to lawfare. The only way that end actually comes about is through holding these members of government accountable, whether that's on the federal level or the state level. This is somebody who openly campaigned on perverting the law as one of the biggest states in the union's top cop. She then got into that office, threw out the rule book to get the former president of the United States, and then proceeded to move on with her life that has several different income streams that might be corrupt. And so the only way to move beyond lawfare is actually to start holding the people, the perpetrators of this lawfare, accountable. This is not retribution. This is not revenge. This is standard accountability. A crime, which she even admitted on social media, is a serious one.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.